Good evening and welcome to Sky Night. The moon is waxing gibbous with 83% illumination. It will be rising in the afternoon and shining most of the night in Sagittarius. Enable captions in your language to see local observing cities and times. Join us now for a guided tour of tonight's whole sky. We begin our evening with Venus shining halfway up the southern sky, alongside the globular cluster Messier 5 in the same region, while Vega and Deneb glow almost straight overhead and Albireo sparkles high in the southern sky. As night deepens, we watch for southern Delta Aquariids meteors appearing halfway up the southern sky and spot Mars glowing near the eastern horizon. Toward morning, the Andromeda Galaxy and Algol dominate the sky almost straight overhead, with Dipta and Saturn high and halfway up the southern sky respectively, Jupiter rising near the eastern horizon, and the double cluster along with Perseids meteors gracing the high northern sky. Our tour concludes with a series of moon crossings by satellites. Venus shines as a dazzling silver-white point halfway up the southern sky, outshining every star after the moon. This brilliant planet is near its greatest elongation, dominating the evening view despite some twilight brightening the sky at its best moment. In London, the planet sets shortly after 8:45 in the evening. In New York, it sets shortly after 8:10 in the evening, and in Los Angeles, it sets shortly after 7:55 in the evening. Even though it's often called Earth's twin, Venus is one of only 2 planets in our solar system that never got a single natural satellite. It simply has no moons at all. That makes the bright evening star the oddball of the planetary family, a world that shines without any companion to circle it. Our featured deep sky object is Messier 5, a soft white globular cluster in Serpens that is over 12 billion years old. To find it, start at Arcturus and move toward Unucal High in Serpens, then look halfway up the southern sky just southwest of Unucal High. While barely visible to the naked eye under dark skies, binoculars will reveal its fuzzy nature, and a telescope resolves streams of stars curving from the core. Watch in London first to catch the cluster before it sets around 8:45 in the evening. By 8:10 in the evening, it is New York's turn for a final glimpse, and Los Angeles follows at 7:55 in the evening. Under a genuinely dark sky, it can just be glimpsed without any instrument, which is rare enough that seeing it counts as a small trophy. Vega is a brilliant blue-white star in the constellation Lyra, visible to the naked eye as a very bright point almost straight overhead. It serves as a key corner of the summer triangle asterism, which helps you locate this nearby star that once acted as the standard for measuring stellar brightness. Look directly above you to find it shining prominently at an altitude of 84 degrees. This star remains above the horizon all night in Los Angeles, New York, and London, reaching its highest point around 9:25 in the evening. Vega was also the first star whose spectrum was ever photographed. This was accomplished in 1872 by Henry Draper, opening the way for systematic spectroscopic studies of other stars. Albireo appears as a warm golden yellow star high in the southern sky, marking the foot of the Northern Cross in Cygnus. Although it looks single to the naked eye, a small telescope splits it into a stunning pair of gold and sapphire blue stars, revealing its true double nature. In Los Angeles, New York, and London, this star culminates around 10:20 in the evening. The very name Albireo is essentially a scholarly blunder, born when a medieval Latin translator's note referring to an aromatic herb of Ireo was misread as a star name and later dressed up with an Arabic-looking letter, L. Deneb is a brilliant blue-white star located almost straight overhead, forming the top of the Northern Cross and another corner of the Summer Triangle. This luminous marker sits within one of the richest star fields of the Milky Way, shining brightly against the dark river of our galaxy. This star stays above the horizon all night and reaches its greatest altitude around 11:30 in the evening for observers in Los Angeles, New York, and London. In Chinese mythology, Deneb is sometimes linked to the legend of the heavenly princess, the weaver girl Jinnu. In some versions of the story, it is the stars of Cygnus, together with Vega and Altair, that form the symbolic bridge over the Milky Way. The Southern Delta Aquariids meteor shower is active tonight, with meteors streaking away from a radiant point in Aquarius halfway up the southern sky. Although the shower is 24 days past its peak and fading, you can still spot an estimated 2 meteors per hour by looking slightly away from the radiant to catch the longest trails. The radiant reaches its highest point in the sky around 1:25 in the morning for viewers in Los Angeles, New York, and London. Mars is rising tonight as an orange-red point near the eastern horizon. Look low in the east to catch this distinctively colored planet as it climbs above the skyline. In London, the planet rises at 1:12 in the morning, while New York and Los Angeles follow at 1:51 in the morning and 2:07 in the morning respectively. Kim Stanley Robinson's Mars trilogy, beginning with Red Mars in 1992, chronicles the first 100 colonists who arrive on the red planet in 2026 and spend the next 2 centuries debating whether to terraform it into a green world or leave it as a pristine red desert. The novels dive deep into the politics of this transformation, showing characters arguing over drilling holes to release subsurface heat and detonating nuclear bombs in the permafrost to melt water, a process that would take generations to turn the frozen, thin atmosphere Mars we know into a place where humans could breathe without suits. While Robinson's vision is a meticulous, multi-generational saga of scientific and social change, the real Mars remains a cold, airless rock where the only signs of life are the rovers we sent to explore its dusty plains. Now we turn to the crossings of Phobos across the disk of Mars. Phobos makes its first crossing of the apparent disk of Mars, lasting 51 minutes. In Los Angeles, this transit occurs between 10:36 in the morning and 11:27 in the morning while Mars is above the horizon. In New York, it happens between 1:36 in the afternoon and 2:27 in the afternoon as Mars stands above the horizon, whereas in London Mars is below the horizon. The next Phobos crossing of the apparent disk of Mars takes 52 minutes. This event unfolds in London between 2:15 in the morning and 3:07 in the morning with Mars above the horizon, while in Los Angeles and New York Mars is below the horizon. Phobos completes its sequence with a third crossing of the apparent disk of Mars, a passage that lasts 51 minutes. The transit occurs in Los Angeles between 1:55 in the morning and 2:46 in the morning as Mars is above the horizon, in New York between 4:55 in the morning and 5:46 in the morning while Mars stands above the horizon, and in London between 9:55 in the morning and 10:46 in the morning with Mars above the horizon. The Andromeda Galaxy is a pale oval smudge almost straight overhead, representing an entire galaxy of stars visible to the naked eye. To locate it, hop from the corner of the Great Square of Pegasus along 2 stars to find this faint, fuzzy patch in the Andromeda chain. Around 3:30 in the morning, the galaxy is highest for observers in Los Angeles, New York, and London, where it remains above the horizon all night. Andromeda is the nearest large galaxy to the Milky Way, located approximately 2.5 million light-years away, making it the most distant object visible to the naked eye from Earth. Difta is one of the 50 brightest stars in the night sky, glowing high in the southern sky within the constellation Cetus. You can find it by following the eastern side of the Great Square of Pegasus and extending that line southward until you reach the brightest point in the Whale. This star culminates around 3:30 in the morning for viewers in Los Angeles, New York, and London. Difta has a mass about 2.8 times that of the Sun and a radius about 16.78 times that of the Sun, shining with a brightness exceeding the Sun's by about 139 times. Saturn appears as a steady, unblinking golden point halfway up the southern sky in the constellation Pisces. Though fainter than Jupiter, its calm yellow glow distinguishes it from the twinkling stars around it. Observers in Los Angeles, New York, and London will see the planet reach its highest point around 3:40 in the morning. When NASA's Cassini spacecraft flew past Saturn's moon Enceladus in 2005, it did something no one expected. It flew right through a plume of water vapor shooting out from the moon's south pole, discovering that this tiny, frozen world was actually spewing geysers of ice and gas into space. The probe found that these jets, which blast out about 200 kilograms of material every second, are so powerful that they feed the entire E-ring, the vast, diffuse outer ring of Saturn that we see from Earth. Jupiter is rising tonight as a bright point near the eastern horizon in the constellation Cancer. Keep your eyes low in the east to witness the giant planet emerging from the darkness. In Los Angeles and New York, the planet rises around 4:45 in the morning, while in London it rises at 4:12 in the morning. The Great Red Spot is a crimson storm wider than Earth that astronomers have watched rage for at least 190 years. The double cluster is a famous pair of white open clusters in Perseus, appearing as a hazy patch between that constellation and the W shape of Cassiopeia. Look high in the northern sky and use binoculars to split this fuzzy spot into two distinct, glittering gems, though twilight may brighten the sky slightly at this time. The cluster remains above the horizon all night in Los Angeles, New York, and London, reaching its highest point around 5:05 in the morning. The story of the double cluster isn't just about the stars themselves, but about the moment William Herschel, working in the early 19th century with his sister Caroline, first realized this glowing patch of sky was actually two distinct stellar islands. While ancient observers like Hipparchus had noted the object as a single smudge of light over 2 millennia ago, it took Herschel's powerful new telescope to reveal the truth that the clusters were separate entities, a discovery that transformed a vague celestial mystery into a concrete astronomical landmark. Algol is the ghoulish eye of Medusa in Perseus, shining almost straight overhead as a white star. Found by extending the W of Cassiopeia toward Perseus, this variable star visibly dims and brightens over the course of a few nights if you watch it closely, even with some twilight interference. In Los Angeles and New York, this star reaches its highest point around 5:45 in the morning, while in London it stays above the horizon all night and peaks at 5:20 in the morning. The Batman supervillain Ra's al Ghul takes his name from the very same Arabic phrase, Ra's al Ghul, that named the star Algol, both meaning the demon's head. The Perseids meteor shower remains active tonight, sending meteors streaking from a radiant high in the northern sky within Perseus. Now 11 days past its peak, the shower still offers an estimated 6 meteors per hour. Look high in the north and let your gaze wander slightly from the radiant to spot the longest trails, despite potential twilight brightening. The radiant reaches its highest point around 5:45 in the morning for observers in Los Angeles and New York, while in London it stays above the horizon all night and culminates at 5:20 in the morning. On this night, 41 satellites cross the moon's disk, with 28 of those tracks passing close to towns and settlements, and 6 of those are presented here. Tiangong Space Station makes the first crossing of the night. Its ground path begins west of São Tomé at 7:28 in the evening and ends southwest of Baikonur at 12:43 after midnight. For an observer standing on the narrow path, the crossing of the disk takes only about 1 second. The second of the night sees Tiangong Space Station make its crossing. Its ground path begins near Babamba at 7:56 in the evening and ends near Xininglu at 12:11 after midnight. The third of the night sees Tiangong Space Station make its crossing. Its ground path begins over the open Atlantic at 9 in the evening and ends near Belorechensк at 12:15 after midnight. The fourth of the night sees Tiangong Space Station make its crossing. Its ground path begins near Mengling at 11 in the evening and ends near Hunchun at 11:06 in the evening. The fifth of the night sees International Space Station make its crossing. Its ground path begins over the open Indian Ocean at 11:57 in the evening and ends near Silchar at 12:33 after midnight. The sixth of the night sees Hubble Space Telescope make its crossing. Its ground path begins near Pekanbaru at 12:37 after midnight and ends west of Kalibo, Poblacion at 1:40 in the morning. Join us again tomorrow for your nightly sky guide, and until then, clear skies and good observing.